Ask the bookmakers and they'll tell you that Brexit, a British exit from the EU, is unlikely. The opinion polls, however, are starting to suggest a different outcome. With me here to discuss this is Gideon Rachman, the FT's chief foreign affairs commentator. Gideon, welcome. You're actually among those who think the opinion polls may be getting this right, that Brexit is more likely, perhaps, than people think.
Yeah, well, perhaps it's a slightly simple-minded analysis, but I tend to look at the opinion polls and say that they are quite a good indication. And of the last 9 that have been taken, we're now getting lots of opinion polls as the date gets closer. 5 of the last 9 have shown small majorities for voting to leave the EU. Now, political pundits still tend to say, oh, well, you know, when the campaign really gets going, that will fall away. But that, for me, has an unfortunate echo of the kind of thing I was hearing in the US in November, when I remember being in Washington and saying, hey, you know, Trump seems to be ahead in all these polls, and people would say, oh, well, yeah, that's not going to last. But it did.
And do you see any relation between those two? I mean, Trump famously, people are seeing him as a sort of expression of a populist sort of outburst.
Yeah, I think there isn't a relationship, because if we vote to leave in the UK, I think primarily it will be about immigration and about open borders. And obviously that is the issue that Trump has majored on in the United States. And more broadly, I think that you've seen the fact that Trump can do so well is a reflection of a growing distrust of elite opinion, unwillingness to take elite opinion seriously. And in the UK, it tends to be the richer, the more middle class, the more establishment people who are saying stay in the EU. And even the vote leave people will tell you that their core vote is poorer and less educated, which is similar to the Trump people.
You've mentioned the campaign vote leave. I mean, do you think that there is something around the way both sides have organised themselves? Maybe the pro-Brexit side is just better organised, or has got the easier arguments? And that those
I think a bit of both. I mean, you certainly talk to the people campaigning for the EU, or rather I was talking to somebody who used to be on that side of the argument in the Tony Blair days when they were also preparing for a referendum, and he said, when I think of the coalition we thought we'd have a united and quite passionate Labour Party, a strong Liberal Democratic Party, and at least half the Tory Party. But Labour is kind of absent from this campaign. The Lib Dems were more or less wiped out in the last election, and the Tories are completely split and much more at war with each other than we thought they would be even a few weeks ago. So the political side isn't very strong, and the business side is much more equivocal than the pro-EU camp want. Only about a third of FTSE 100 people have come out in favour of staying inside the EU because they may be wary of their shareholders or their customers. And by contrary, the vote leave people have a couple of very simple, clear slogans. We can control our own borders, we can make our own laws, we can get our money back from Brussels. And the answers to those, and I think there are good answers to those slogans, but they're complicated. And as they say in politics, if you're explaining, you're losing.
So what final question could the Remain side, led by the Prime Minister David Cameron, what could they do to turn this situation around, do you think?
Well, I think a number of things. I think they will rely increasingly on Cameron's authority. He hasn't really hit the campaign trail yet, and I think he will be effective, I hope. I think that they're also going to try to get outside endorsements, so that President Obama is going to be in Britain next month, and he is expected to more or less say, look, I think Britain should stay inside the EU. And although he's a very divisive figure in America, he's actually pretty popular and respected in the UK, and I think that will help partly because a lot of the Vote Leave campaign is saying, look, there's a wider world beyond the EU that will welcome Britain with open arms. And if the President of the United States, our most important ally, says not so fast, that is quite damaging for them.
And you don't think British voters might resent being told by a foreign leader, which is what some of the outers have notably Boris Johnson have argued?
I think some will, but I think the ones who will resent it are the ones who want us to leave anyway. I think the pro-in campaign will be pretty relieved if he comes in and intervenes. And it will depend very much on the tone, but they'll think about that very hard. He's very conscious that he can't be seen to, you know, order the Brits around, so he'll preface it with comments like, you know, obviously this is Britain's vote, but if you ask me, my opinion is, and I think he can probably package it that way.
Right. Gideon Rachman, thank you very much.
Pleasure.